Hi, my name's Joe Brewer, and I'm a change strategist. Today, what I want to do is talk with you about how economic paradigms work, and in particular, how large structural changes can happen in economic systems on the global stage. And the book that I want to review to help us understand how to do this is this really phenomenal piece of scholarship, Technological Revolutions and Financial Capital, The Dynamics of Bubbles and Golden Ages by Carlotta Perez. Now, this book, what it does is it takes you through the different stages of economic paradigms by looking at the changes in economic systems as if they were complex adaptive systems. Said another way, when there is a convergence of innovative new breakthrough ways of doing technological development or running a business, some kind of an innovation, there's a process by which financial capital is attracted to this new wave of doing things that grows and formalizes and crystallizes into an interconnected web of communications infrastructure, production or manufacturing infrastructure, and logistics or distribution infrastructure. And as this process goes along, it goes through several distinct stages. Now, what Carlotta Perez does in this book that is extremely useful for us in the present situation in the early 21st century is she describes how boom-bust cycles arise within financial systems and how these boom-bust cycles are related to changes in economic paradigms. Now, we've just gone through a boom-bust cycle, with the boom being the speculative bubble starting in roughly 1980 and growing up until late 2008, 2009, when there was a crash in the bubble and part of the bubble disappeared. That's what we call the Great Financial Crisis of 2009, or the Great Recession. And since that time, there has been a vast and yet subtle shift in the organization of our economic system, moving away from a production paradigm that is linear, centralized, and built around very large corporate and governmental entities, and moving into a world of distributed, collaborative, open source, commons-based operations and entities using the internet and using the various digital infrastructure of smartphones and distributed networks of communication, production, and distribution. So for us to understand how this change process works, we really need to know what are the underlying drivers that shape the emerging patterns of economic systems, how these patterns can become stable and robust and grow and accumulate to become the dominant or primary way of doing things in the world, and then how that dominant and primary way of doing things can edify, become rigid, difficult to change, slow to adapt, and then in a disruptive environment, like what we find ourselves in today, the entire thing can begin a process of decay and collapse. And then there will be the rise of another organized, structured, or self-organized and structured economic paradigm. So we're in the midst of this process right now as we try to make the transition to global sustainability and move away from late modern era capitalism and move into a post-industrial period of production. We need to understand how these large-scale economic patterns work. And that's what Carlotta Perez does in this book, Technological Revolutions and Financial Capital. Enjoy.